am because we are. And this reminds us that the well-being of one is tied to the well-being of all. Today in our world, this is very, very imperative, not just as an ethical ideal, but as a survival imperative. Across the globe, generally, peace building faces persistent and emerging challenges. In the Middle East, fragile ceasefires are constantly tested, as in Gaza and Yemen, where humanitarian corridors struggle to remain very open. In Eastern Europe, the war in Ukraine has reshaped global security thinking, tested diplomatic resolves, and strained humanitarian systems. In Latin America, these issues are not spared, as we see violence linked to organized crimes that has displaced communities. In Africa, our beloved mother continent, these challenges have very local expressions as well. In the Sahel, armed insurgencies, climate shocks, as well as resource competitions have displaced millions of homes and families. In the Sudan, and of course, back home here in South Africa, while we are not at war, it is important to know that the state wrestles with violence in communities, from gender-based issues to xenophobic tensions, which continually erode social cohesion. In the midst of all these, Ubuntu calls us to see beyond boundaries. And dear friends, this session aims to explore the global and African dimensions of peace building, drawing critical connections to the G20 priorities, from sustainable development and social inclusion to conflict prevention. I'm not going to be doing this and moderating this alone. It is my honor to share this moderation of this very crucial session with Martine, a distinguished peace builder, strategist, and practitioner, also an educationist, whose heart remains rooted in justice and inclusive dialogue. Ms. She'll just take it up from here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Father. Good morning. How is everyone doing today? You have a lot of energy? Good. We're going to make this interactive. And a part of making this interactive is to inspire us all to come together as peace actors. And I think you're all here because you have a passion for peacemaking as Absolutely. Religious and traditional actors in this space. So we're honored to be here with you. We're honored to be here with our panel. And what I will do, I'm going to highlight a few things. Conflicts are becoming more complex and interconnected. Peace builders are adapting to shifting forms of violence. So we have to really think forward and think about, rather than doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, what do we need to be doing to be ahead of the conflicts and violence that are happening, to be able to mitigate them rather than respond to them? And the other thing is local solutions carry immense promise, and they've always carried immense promise. Religious actors, traditional actors, women and youth have always been at the front lines of conflict. But geopolitics is shaping the ground that we stand on today. So how do we take that into consideration? And I'm going to put a very strong force on that angle of what's happening and what we're seeing to be more reflective in how do we engage and address some of the geopolitical dynamics that are happening in our world, because we're all interconnected as we're discussing here. And what is the role then of religious actors? I work with an organization that's called the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy, and that is our bread and butter, is what role and how do we support religious and traditional actors in peacemaking across the world. What I'm going to do now is highlight two focuses of the panel based on the G20 Interfaith Forum. The first one is we're going to explore lived experiences of peace building for multiple contexts here today and identify practical connections to the G20 priority issues. I want to ask quickly, this is just to get into, engage with our participants here. Raise your hand. I'm going to select two people that raise their hand. And can you share if you're working on any peace initiatives and give us a 60-second insight into what you're doing so we can interact? So I've had two people raise their hand very quickly here. Do you want to share?
Yes, I'm just going Hi, I'm Tahira from the Baha'i community. Yes, there was some conflict at a school where children of different race groups were not getting along very well. So I went in and worked with the school, and the issue was to create a culture of peace in the school, and that's still ongoing.
Beautiful.
Thank
That's
you.
commendable. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm also a Baha'i, so I feel like we're taking up a lot of airtime. Is there somebody else that wanted to share? Let me just give it.
Yeah. Yes, Makasi.
Ladies first.
That's good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We all know that South Africa comes from a hugely divided past, and we're still experiencing snippets of divisions and hatred that evidence themselves in service delivery, protest, racism, xenophobia. So we've partnered with the UNDP and also have done some trainings, and also with the IJR, Institute for Justice and Race Relations. We've also got Operation Dudula, and we all know what they do. So we are now currently conducting peace training, peace building and conflict transformation trainings across all the provinces. We're in the process of also appointing district and local-based peace ambassadors for sustainability purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Just to mention, we all have a role in peacemaking. We have a role in peacemaking in our families, with our neighbors, with our broader community, in our countries. And one thing to note is conflict isn't bound by borders. We have these created borders, but it's not bound by borders. It crosses borders, and it has ripple implications.
That's right.
Where there's conflict in one location, there are ripple aspects to that. So how do we look at our countries and our neighbors in that way?
So we'll take something from Makasi. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandile. I'm from the Church of Scientology. And what we do basically is we focus on a lot of conflict, yes, but recently the main focus has been conflicts amongst faiths and religions themselves. So what we created is a platform. We use our center as a interfaith platform where members of different churches we come down and we sit together and we ask ourselves, yeah, I'm Jewish, I'm Muslim, I'm Buddhist, but the drug abuse in the community doesn't discriminate based on my religion. The unemployment rate doesn't care if I'm Christian, this and that. So what are we bringing from our different faiths to solve these problems? And actually for the last 5 years has been amazing, and we've worked with over 4,000 religious leaders, changing skills. We teach them conflict resolution. They teach us this, we teach each other that, but we're creating a community of collaboration.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
We're going to do one final one, and then we'll come to our panelists and let them share. Do you want to do one final?
So my name is Peter. I am with the South African Christian Leaders Initiative at ACWAY, and it's with different Christian leaders in the country. And what we do is, one of our arms is on reconciliation. So we facilitated what we call bridge building, where we get people from different communities together, especially leaders, to have what we call courageous conversations with each other about difficult things. Just to share where do you come from, what is your story, what is your history, and to hear one another. And we've had such wonderful instances of where people went down even to wash one another's feet, people who would normally not be in the same room. So just there's lots of work to be done, but there are shoots of hope, so we mustn't give up hope.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Now we're going to turn to our panelists, and thank you all for sharing. I know many of you are doing many amazing things. What I would encourage you to do is during the breaks, reach out to each other and touch base and form networks and collaborations. So it's a pleasure to see that happen. I'm going to turn now to our panelists, and the key questions for setting this stage are essentially, what's the toughest peace-building challenge you've faced, and what creative strategies have worked? Where have you seen faith leaders make the most difference? And how do we link grassroots peace building to global policy like the G20 agenda. And so who we're going to start with is Nirina. She's looking more at African governance and peace building framing.
Thank you very much, Martina, for the question. And, indeed, as outlined by, Father Boniface in the beginning, we really see the challenge, to peace building in the region, several challenges, and as highlighted by Martina, that, really crosses boundaries. These are transnational issues that cannot be, isolated and dealt with at a national, level. It really needs multifaceted approaches. I would say one of the key challenges which we face in the Africa region is the growth of violent extremism. And, when we look at the 2025 Global Terrorism Index, we have 6 of the 10 most affected countries being in Africa. We had about 10 years ago, the epicenters in West and the Horn of Africa, and we've seen now a spread to the Gulf of Guinea, DRC within the Great Lakes region, overspill into there. We have now Southern Africa also being affected, northern Mozambique, but we also know in Southern Africa in terms of support to networks. So really, an issue that has spread, which is also linked with global dynamics, because, when we see the rise of violent extremism really at the peak of 2017, this was when ISIS was on the decline, in Syria and Iraq. So the need to have, more of this, global, kind of perspective. As a development agency, in 2014, when we started looking at the issue of violent extremism, the question was, what do we need to do differently, and do we have a role as development actors? Many said that, we did not. So we had quite a consultative, forum engaging with governments, religious leaders, academics, faith community, and to really have a better understanding of this recruitment into violent extremist groups. And from that, and having then more regional consultations in Africa, we had a couple of consultations. And one key element that came out was there was not enough primary research. And so really the first, course of action was to undertake primary research to really understand, what was happening with this phenomenon, why are people, joining violent extremist groups. And when you look at, more of these structural, issues, and it's really leveraging on local grievances. One of the challenges, I think, with this issue is that it's seen as very much an us versus them, without this understanding of these are actually leveraging on governance deficits, on not feeling of belonging, of feelings of marginalization, of looking for other opportunities. So these are very local issues, but then which are beginning to grow in what we can call conflict ecosystems, where you have unconstitutional changes of government, where you have also illicit trade, where it's exacerbated, also by climate factors. So, you have these nuclei of, where this is happening. So, the first is definitely, the research, element. The second was also to understand, how do we better identify, sort of early signs. And we did work with the African Union, ECOWAS, IGAD, leveraging on peace infrastructures, having processes of at community level, at national, at regional level. How do you identify these signs, of recruitment into violent extremist, groups, to really focus more on the prevention? And just to give, one example, there was a film that was produced actually by our Sudan country office called Iman. And because a lot of the recruitment is very subtle, this, film, it took real stories of people, students in a university, one joined a football team, one was, in a band, but, through these interactions with people, it tells their story. And this, film has really been used as a tool to really highlight, how the subtlety of it, the localization, of it. To bring it up a bit, in terms of, looking at some of these conflict contexts that need multifaceted approaches. If you look at governance deficits, if you're looking at environment, if you're looking at, not feeling like you belong, it needs more of a holistic approach. And I think where we stand today, in Africa, we have less than 4% being invested of ODA into peace building and prevention, we have an opportunity. We have a new agenda for peace that really highlights positive peace, peace writ large, and looking at climate change, looking at gender parity, looking at economic, opportunities. And one of the recommendations we see coming out from recent research is how do we better embed peace building or conflict prevention, for example, within national development, local development. So, really when we look at, the key question today is we know that peace writ large encompasses many aspects. So how do we ensure that we change the way we are approaching the issue of peace to better embed it, within ongoing development? And what is the role of the faith community within that endeavor?
Perfect. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Maria. Next, we're going to turn to Maria to share the same questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria, and I'm coming from ACWAY, a common word amongst the youths. I think peace building is timely, and youth involvement in peace building is very, very timely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm here representing young African peace builders because I've been working around peace building for the past 10 years. And most young people are facing common challenges. Firstly, we cannot talk about peace building without the involvement of young people. Secondly, we cannot talk about peace building without the involvement of women. Why am I saying so? We young people are used as perpetrators of war and violence, but most of the times we are looked down on. Women. I'll share a few successful stories about how women have ended wars and conflict in Africa. Liberia. There was a 14-year civil war, and women were tired because we are the people that are mostly impacted by conflict. They said enough. They came together and put two conflicting parties in a room and said, reach a settlement. The conflicting parties, wanted to dilly-dally. They said, we will remove our clothes until you reach a settlement. And the rest is history. Why are we excluded? Young people, we are mostly used because of the high levels of unemployment and hunger. If they come to us and say, oh, here is $1,000, we'll say, oh, okay. We would rather be used because of the situation that is facing, the current situation in Africa. But we're saying as African young people, we want to be involved in peace-building processes because we are able to give solutions that are workable. Now, what are the challenges that we young peace builders are facing in Africa? We are mostly at the grassroots. We are the ones that are mostly implementing capacity building trainings, community hall gatherings, so on and so forth. But we have seen the shrinking of the funding space. We are lacking funds. Secondly, we are lacking capacity because of the dynamics of conflicts now. We want to be trained. And just to cut it short, we are the changers. So if we are not involved, I think there's no even use of talking about peace because we are the people that are mostly used. So we cannot talk about peace without the involvement of young people and women. Thank you.
That's a very interesting one. We'll take a very quick perspective from the area of policy and academics from Professor Tim. Please, can we have your say on that?
Thank you very much to the organizers, Boniface, Martine, and for inviting me to join this panel. So I'm Tim Murithi with the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation based in Cape Town, and we work across the continent on peace building. So that is actually my day job. But I tailored my talk slightly differently. I want to talk about something different because I think you've heard some of these things that we discussed before. I will focus on global policy, but I will approach it from a slightly spiritual perspective, if I may, at the Interfaith Forum, with your permission. So I think we still are curious about the mystery of the human being, exactly what animates the human being. And we lovely to see so many of you and so many of your different colors and paraphernalia. Our DNA, I think ultimately, based on what we know, is made of minuscule particles of light and sound. Ultimately, we are light and sound. In essence, we are made of bodies of light. We are light bodies and we are light workers. And I see peace building as light work, because peace building is trying to connect us as people and to say we are actually one entity, rather than all the different 8 billion divisions that we've created, 193 different nation states. You know, we are one, and how can we start to think in that light? Our connection to the divine source of energy and consciousness. And it's important that each individual is an expression of this divine source of energy and consciousness. And peace begins with me, peace begins with you, and I think that is the way we should be in the world. In this sense, we are light workers. We are diligently bringing and building light through this work we call peace building, trying to temper the darkness and the dark elements and the dark forces. We are also part of a planet that is made of the same substance, light and sound. We sometimes forget that the earth is alive, very much a living being. The Gaia hypothesis has been discussed extensively. And by extension, our solar system and our galaxy and our universe and our cosmos. And it's interesting that there is an interstellar object flying towards Earth right now. If some of you are following the news, it's called a 3-eye atlas. There was one a few years ago called Oumuamua. This is slightly bigger, and it's coming towards us. And maybe, who knows, we might discover that there are other members of our interstellar family out there. As human beings, we do create structures, institutions, mechanisms, and even belief systems that enable us to move and have our being and exchange with each other. These include our international system, so that's where the global policy dimension comes through. We have regrettably handed our power over to these structures, institutions, and mechanisms that we have created. And now we have become prisoners of these structures, institutions, and mechanisms. We have also become detached and alienated from the systems that we have created. Our nation states, our international system. Far from contributing to peace building and light building, our systems, such as the United Nations Security Council, has become an instrument and a vehicle for promoting darkness. And now some of us are referring to it as the United Nations Insecurity Council. Wow. To shed light on this darkness, there are still a few institutions that are trying to uphold this principle that we are all one, such as the International Court of Justice. Some of you have followed its rulings. And I think as humanity, we need to interrogate the type of systems that we have built, and we need to bring back the light into our peace building. Self-evidently, I think we need therefore to realign the structures we have created. And it's important to know that we have created them. They don't exist in separation. It's like the Security Council should not exist forever. There has to be a time when it will come to cease to exist. And I think the work that we are doing now at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation is working with other colleagues to convene a United Nations, to encourage members of the United Nations General Assembly to invoke Article 109 of the Charter of the United Nations, to convene a General Conference of members of the United Nations with the purpose of reviewing the Charter of the United Nations, which cannot be vetoed by the permanent 5 members of the United Nations Security Council, and every country, every member state will have a vote, a single vote. This conference is long overdue. It was supposed to take place in 1955. In the 80-year history of the organization, it has not happened. So humanity has a pathway, as I conclude, to confront the darkness, the live-streamed genocide that we see, the invasion of countries by aggressive countries. Humanity has a pathway to extinguish the darkness, to build institutions that will genuinely build peace. And I will end by saying that I would like to invite you all to inform yourselves, educate yourselves about this Article 109. You may not have heard it before, but please use your phone. As interfaith leaders, let us work together at this global policy level to actually transform our system. Spread the word to your families and friends and colleagues, and we are together on this journey. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very sincerely, Professor Tim. And that is very important for all of us, paying attention to that Article 109 and doing a personal study of it and applying it rather in context. I want to turn now to King Bongwe II. From the traditional and very cultural perspective, we listen to our Sister Maria, emphasize something very seriously, the youths being used as tool for violence, and of course, women too being left behind from the table of dialogue. And very, very important too, all of this in different communities across our continent. And of course, as a traditional ruler, we are not left out of the issues of marginalizations of these brothers and sisters of ours. So from the traditional perspective, we want to ask very quickly, how do we ensure as faith leaders that the voices of the displaced, the poor, the marginalized groups in our communities are really heard, the particular issues they face in communities, and how do we go about addressing them? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's on. It's on.
Thank you. Our moderator and the panelists, and then greeting to the house, greeting to the royal families that are within our midst, all the excellencies, and the youth and women in the house, all of you, all protocol observed. Thank you for this opportunity to be the panelist and talking about peace. I'm Dr. King Bongwe, the second the Emperor of the Ndebele Nation and Nzunza clan, and also I'm serving as a president of an International Association of World Peace Advocate, United Nations ECOSOC, which is African Union. So I'm the president of peace within the continent of Africa for 54 countries. So to respond in the matters that why life doesn't bring peace into yourselves, because peace is essentially to each and everybody that you need to have. In these our days now, we find that peace is the most expensive commodity for people to be there. So I would like to start responding in policies. Policies that are ruling people or that are being implemented quite some times. Others 15th century, 17th century, 18th centuries. Mind you, if you are giving birth to your children, you say, I'm saving for them, I'm breathing them so that they can stand for the future. Do we think these policies, is it conducive for each and every human being that are here? So those policies, they were made for that time, it was conducive for that time. You cannot have a sealed document that you says that it must imply in 18th centuries. So we need to have we need to review these policies, because you cannot have peace because of people based on those policies that are being killed by the vacuums. The vacuums, the young ones, they've been left behind and they are in their corner where they need a help and the leadership because of their education level. This curriculum that is within our systems, it's suffocating them, it takes them nowhere. What I've studied from the school, from primary to secondary, I've never seen it in a university. So those curriculums then are not made for people. They are just delaying us, and they are derailing us as well too. So you cannot have peace while you are hungry. You must have food. You cannot have peace while you are not working, because it is essential to have money, because money, it brings everything. And to have that element of peace, peace is a package of everything. First, it begins with Ubuntu. So within those policies that have been made, that is frustrating any humankind and with its own nature, did they apply of Ubuntu? Because it's internationally problems that we are facing into. So now what I can say is, regardless of the frustrations that we are there through to G20, they come up with a solution. Don't complain. So let's participate to build from that. Because if we are complaining and we are derailing ourselves and our energy and we are busy advocating for the negative, then when you give the negative strength, then you're not going to grow. You will remain in one place. So it is very, very important that we participate, take this opportunity, these platforms, then to endorse, So that is what is important then for these policies. Because of women's, they must be ahead. If we can put women, they are very focused. And women, they are the builders, they are the incubators. I take them, they are the entrepreneurs. If you can give a woman a bed, she will give you a baby. If you give a woman a grocery, she will give you food. If you give a woman a house, she will give you a home. So why do you leave women behind? We are from the women. Women, they must be prioritized. If we can say, us as men, we can initiate something. We're good in starting, but finishing, we're not. Women, they're very good. So I need women in the whole of Africa. Please run and then to this peacemaking. I thank you.
So that is the greater call for all of us to engage the women more and ensure that our youths are not left behind. Martine.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that more later. I would like to introduce Ambassador Satti. He's a good friend. He's from Sudan. He's working very closely on the Sudan process, where we all are aware that Sudan is in a crisis. Professor Satti, or Ambassador Satti, would you like to go ahead and share?
Thank you, Martine. Thank you very much, Martine. My name is Nureldin Satti, former ambassador of Sudan to the United States, to France, to UNESCO, to the Vatican, and I'm former acting special representative of the United Nations in Burundi under Kofi Annan. When earlier this morning, Ms. Marshall, when she spoke about the heart, the mind, and the hand, she took me back to my UNESCO days when we used to say, talk about building the defenses of peace in the minds of men. in the minds of men. So there are two issues with this statement. The first one, it talks about the minds, and it does not talk about the heart, or the spirit, or the hand. The other issue is talking about the men, because that was the time when men, prevailed everything. And so now the amendment readjustment that should make today, that will add men and women, of course. But building on what Professor Maurice said and beginning on a spiritual note also, let me say maybe that the link between the global and the African can be summarized maybe in something that might be a little bit, ironical. When the powerful and the rich sneeze, Africa catches cold. And this brings me, of course, to the state where we are now. A very brief description of our world today is that the big powers are involved in a struggle for resources, minerals, and strategic footholds. And when you link this to the technological advancement that we have, or revolution that we have, and we are going into a very critical phase of it, which is that of artificial intelligence, you would link the African, predicament today, particularly in countries like the DRC, where we see exactly what is happening, and technological revolution, where in order to get this, you need rare earths and rare minerals. And each and every one of us, whenever you open your iPhone or your telephone, you should think about the exploitation and the misery in which some population in this earth and in Africa are living. You have followed, you have seen exactly what is the misery in which mine workers in different countries, particularly in Africa, are suffering. So this link between technology, which should have been brought welfare to this world, is becoming a curse in many ways. It's becoming a curse in promoting hate speech around the globe and in increasing the exploitation of many populations around this world, particularly in Africa. So we should have this in. The other idea that I would have built on what Ms. Marcia said this morning, and the word alignment that has been used by my good friend, Professor Maurice, is we see a disconnect today between the heart, the mind, and the hand. And I think the basic, one of the fundamental objectives of a faith movement is to see to it that those three are realigned in a way that we serve peace, stability, and welfare, and justice for all on this planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We're going to come back to you now. Want to open the floor now. If there are questions you want to pose, we'll take some from here and some from here out as well. Please let me begin from the back. Ladies first, right? Yes.
Thank you very much.
First, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Amanda, and I work for the United Nations in Lesotho. First of all, let me just say thank you to the panelists. You've really raised some more very interesting things. I have 3 comments that I would like to make, and I'll keep them brief. Actually, 2 comments and a question. The first one is, I think it was Nirina who talked about research. And I'm just wondering whether it's helpful for us to understand the nature, scope, and genesis of some of the conflicts that we're talking about. When you look at the continent of Africa, quite a lot of the high-level conflicts that we see is actually, it's a business. Conflict is a business.
It's transactional.
It is resource-driven. We are talking about a new scramble for Africa. And even the old scramble for Africa was about resources and power. And it continues to be so, right? That is one thing that I want to say. Of course, that doesn't mean that we do not have other sources of conflict. We do have. The second comment that I want to make is, from a legal perspective, we normally talk about, you must come to equity with clean hands. If you want to claim equity, you yourself must be clean. And I want to ask a question, and I know that it might offend. Please forgive me, it is not meant to offend. But I've been listening attentively since I came here. And I want to say, are we sure and confident that as religious institutions and interfaith groups, we are not part and parcel of the causes of conflict? So how can we talk about peace and peace building genuinely if actually at the heart of devastating conflict in the world sits the very concept of religion? And I think that we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. If we can't talk about it in here, then where are we going to talk about it? And then my last comment is on sort of local communities. And I want to be very clear that when I talk about local communities, I don't necessarily mean that there's a top and there's a bottom somewhere, okay? One thing that I've learned in Lesotho is that Basotho have always had at their very heart, when the nation of Lesotho was established and founded over 200 years ago, the concept of peace. King Mushweshwe I sold the offer of peace to the world, and he united his people on that concept. To this day, when you go to Basotho villages, there is a place that is called a pizzo ground. And the pizzo ground is a place where the community comes together to raise any issues that they might have conversations with their leaders, and to build understanding through dialogue. And yet, when we talk about peace building, we come with concepts that are not necessarily from those communities, and we assume that those communities are not able to have dialogue. Is there a way that as faith groups and institutions, we can unlearn and then take time to learn and be educated in the understanding of the power of peace in communities and what has brought them to where they are today? Those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those very striking questions. Surely the conversations have to be kept open. Please, behind the... Yes. Yeah, we'll come that way. Yes.
Greetings, my brothers and sisters, locally, nationally, and internationally. My name is Acharya Sham Ramanuj. I'm a South African, and I think it will be remiss of me not to mention, especially in the context of this discussion, that there is no white genocide in South Africa. Thank you. My sister, just before me, covered me on most of what I wanted to say, but I just want to point out that my brother on the extreme right He stated that we are made of sound and light, and I agree with him 100%. And this human body is the most efficient technology in the world. The next technology is the universe. And the synthesis between this technology and the universe is what gives us prosperity and abundance. This technology, especially in Africa, has been injected with a virus by big business. Remove big business, we will start our prosperity, and we will start utilizing that abundance that is here in Africa. Africa has everything that the world needs. Africa does not need the world. But yet, we are moving around with begging bowls from those who have taken our own. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your very interesting comment. Okay. Please, can you go the extreme, then come this way? Yes. So come that way, then. Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
So if you are brief and concise, we'll try to accommodate more.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned in my journey of faith, and I don't know if you share your last name with Ambassador Kiplagat, for example, because he was an embodiment of witness. And people of faith, we are called upon to bear prophetic witness for what's happening in the world. So I'm astounded at the silence. I hear it occasionally, and thank you for raising some of the geopolitical stuff, but there's a deepening silence still.
Okay.
Of us not bearing witness, and I would like to think that as part of this initiative, we can galvanize and organize to see how do we continue to bear witness, even if silently. So one day when we're called upon to testify, we can say, I was there and I saw this. So I'm looking for those faith in action steps beyond the analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Peterson. We'll come back. Yeah.
Thank you. A very special presentation from every one of you.
Thank you.
I am Solomon. I represent the Baha'i International Committee Addis Ababa office. From the perspective of social evolution, I see peace is inevitable. It is the next stage in the evolution of humankind. We can't deny that. We see it coming. But as Ambassador suggested, it needs the alignment of the mind, the heart, and the body. Or sometimes I call it the 3H. The head, the heart, and the head, heart, and hand. But I also replace the heart from the perspective of religion. Also African indigenous wisdom, we can replace the heart with the soul. The soul is a very critical element of the human soul. Unless we nurture the human soul, peace is more or less, it's delayed, even though it's inevitable. So what should we do in order to bring this into alignment, the head, the soul, and the hand? I would like to hear from some of you what we can do as individuals, as communities, as institutions to help align these three elements of humanity and then, of course, bring peace faster than expected.
Okay, thank you. So we have three here. We just have one here. So we'll deal with that quickly then. Yes.
Yes. My name is Peterson from ACWAY, fellow. I think we must also, the topic a bit is just quite also like disrupting me a bit because it says global and African challenges. It now seems as if really Africa is not part of the globe. That's what it's showing. And I think we should get away from the narrative of like Africa is not having peace. We are the most peaceful nation ever. Like we have the best peace-keeping communities. We have the best people who keep peace. Most of the tourists will tell you Africa has peace. peace. The people that are fighting is of the Western Hemisphere. So where do we really start the conversation of peace building? Is it with Africa or with the West? And also the idea of starting peace building with saying peace building, looking at the mental gap. I think we are not looking at the mental gap that we are also having when it comes to peace building. We cannot talk about peace building while the mental health gap between an African country comparing to a Western country, there's a very, very big difference. So when are we ready with mental clarity to say that, yes, a child that suffered war in Gaza, or a child that suffered war in Sudan, a child that has been mining, and then we come with frameworks of saying, yes, we need peace building. What is that mental clarity? What is the mental health distance or the gap between those? And with research, Ms. Nirina, you specified on research, like starting research on local areas and, doing research community-based, right? The question is, where does this research go to? Do we have our own African research engines that only support African ideology? When we do research in universities, schools, where does our papers go with the studies we do within our own communities? Do we really have our own research engine as Africans that correlate to us as Africans? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I first want to acknowledge the balanced panel, looking at the intergenerational kind of thing. And so I want to acknowledge that. And then I have two questions. And I appreciate what Professor Tim talked about. We have a lot of international frameworks that have been there since, I was born. Is it necessary to continue with them? And also, I'm still thinking, and a lot of billions are poured into peace-building work. But Africa continues to be the home of conflict. Look at what is happening in the Horn of Africa. Look at what is happening in Sudan and everywhere. Is it that this framework that we are developing, or is it that there's no lack of funding, or the money is little, or when we design this framework, are we considering the African realities so that we can be able to support? And also just in terms of looking at the conflicts happening and what Maria talked about and my sister there, a lot of these resolutions, a lot of these solutions are not community-led. Because when conflicts happen, children, and I work with children. I currently, through my organization, support over 4,000 children through peace building and peace education in schools. Children and faith communities are passive beneficiaries. How then can we be able to support these communities and not governments and NGOs?
Peace building experiences in other parts of the world, and what can the world learn from this?
Technology. Yes. How do you even enhance technology to support these communities? But anyway, so how do we put these communities at the center of the solutions affecting them, and not just as participants who come to benefit from workshops and trainings? So that is my question, and I really want to hear, Ambassador responding to the first question, and Madam Nirina, who I appreciate the work that she's doing with UNDP, responding to the second question. Thank you so much, and Tim as well, Professor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I have two questions.
Well, okay, we'll finish with you, and then we're going to come back to the panel because there are many questions.
Yeah. So that we don't have too much and then not attending to them. So
okay, good.
Very, very quickly.
Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge the panel again. Mr. Tim, thank you very much for highlighting that what we are suffering from is self-created problems. Okay? We know who wrote the policies. We know who's benefiting from conflict and selling guns and all of this. We know exactly who the perpetrators are. We know exactly who the victims are. So instead of tiptoeing around what we know, which is realistically, what are we as the faith community going to do? What is our faith in action? What is our Ubuntu in action? How do we not become people, spectators that come and attend workshops and pretend to sound fancy and then leave with a LinkedIn post and then wait for the next workshop to do the same thing? Because we've been doing it for hundreds of years. We've been writing policies for thousands of years. We've been talking. What are we going to do?
Thank you.
That's a good segue into the next part of our program today, because we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that in a very active way. So I'm going to hand the floor over to our panelists to answer the array of questions. Would you like to start?
Okay. No, thanks. I think much has been said, and yeah, we're chasing miracles around a man-made somebody situation, and hence I said before, let's initiate, let's move forward, let's build. You know, in the whole of African continent, we've got group of the traditional leaders that they're indigenous. Let's find ourselves, let the interfaith, the faith groups to align with writing the memo that we say is G20 through to our participations. This is what our findings, or especially as the traditional leaders, and then they call us traditional leaders then, so we're the indigenous. The indigenous, that means the origins, you know, of the beginning. So kings, they don't have their lands. They are not being involved and included in anything, etc. and so on. And two, when we do the peace buildings, so they're putting people that who are not for peace. What do you expect from that? So if this country, like Iran and Gaza or Congo, all of these disasters, those are the souls of the life of people. When you see, if you have Ubuntu, the humanity, when you are watching the negative things, does it communicate with you? Do you understand? It's a one-man interest that he finds ourselves, we find ourselves within that situation. Here in Africa, we are the people of peace. We are the people of peace. I grew up where my grandmother heroes us were the offsprings, 37 children. There were no any discriminations. We were bathing in one bath, eating one food. When we are going to church on Sunday, if other one doesn't go to church, we'll borrow you your clothes. So all of these things, we don't know where is it coming from. So until we stand together, we unite, we'll be preaching one thing and we'll have multiple dialogues. What is important is to build. As you build, you recognize the energy that it was made, because you're not going to start from scratch in your own planet. We'll build from whatever that has been damaged, then we going forward, because we will preach. Other one will come with his sorrows and stories. It's not building us. It's not building us. Let's have a way forward when we're saying we're building, because peace is within us. Peace is not an element that you'll find like in a tree and everything. So people who doesn't have peace, they even, you know, they don't take care of the nature. Because of they've got their self-own interest. Most of those people, they engage themselves, they are in business where is beneficiary for their individuals and their families. But the rest of the continent, the rest of the people, they are not involved. And hence I heard the gentleman was saying that a peace building, global and Africa. Global, that means it's a continent. There's a continent of Africa, there's a continent of the world, and then there's a continent within the Europeans and Western and everything. So as the Africa, we are the continent, we are global. Global is the rest of the world, that the earth, that you are living within it. So now, let's focus now. Focus. Let's stop. Our challenges in Africa is to complain. Use this moment. If you are seeing a president that you wanted to meet and you are seeing him is at the airport, he says, I only have 3 minutes. How can I help you? You are starting telling I was born in this and no, how can I help you? President, this is my challenge. sweet and straightforward. Let's solve problem. Let's be the problem solvers.
Okay.
Let's not be theoretical and everything. It's not going to help speaking English. It says I'm a very fluent in English. It's not education. Part of education, it begins with the parents from home. While the baby is still small. So please, let's focus on the way forward. As I heard a lot of people that you are dealing with youth, you are dealing with women's and building peace and so on. That's what you want. What we want is that there are a lot of funds, in sovereign funds, everywhere it is there. Within the United Nations, funds are there. We've got our own house. That's it in Africa, African Union. Let's rally behind that. So let's stop running this organization and institutions individually. Let's unite. Let the interfaith be. Combine yourself. It's the same when you're playing a national team. You're not going to play, you said I'm the best player. They pick players there and there and there. Then you become now one. Let's build. Let's use this moment. It comes once in a lifetime. Some of us, we're not going to see this G20 that it came in South Africa, but you are speaking politics, but yet you are not politicians. Initiate. We need a brighter future here. We know the point of departure from here. This is what we are going to write. This is our findings within G20 in our participation. Not taking talk show, this what, my mother, my grandfather, I was supposed to be a lawyer, I die, I do this and so on. You cannot do that. You see, if you are playing a football, you see the goalkeeper there, and you've got the ball there. To do the spy two and everything then is pointless. Shoot the goal. The goal is a game because of the goal.
Interesting. Please, a round of applause.
The match is a match because of the goal. That's all. Whatever your good English, your hara, your speech is not helping. Build. Let's not find ourselves be in this situation again, talking politics. Let's move forward. Please, right. I plead with you.
All right, thank you very much. Two things are very outstanding. We need to act, and in acting, we have to collaborate. Please.
Maria.
Thank you. So the king just said a call to action. A call to action. It's time to work and not talk. Talk, neto. Talk and no action. So there's a question about the local communities from my sister there. I think we need to find solutions that work within our own context and our own community. As a person that's working on the grassroots, it has to be different from the way I'm going to have peace building processes in Lesotho, because of different cultural norms and values. It should also be different from Zambia because even the causes of conflicts are dynamic. So the first thing as young people and women is we should try and build peace in our own context, within our culture. And like he said, I am from the grassroots, I emphasize. I'm a foot soldier. As a peace builder, when you go into the community, they will not accept your idea unless you work with and collaborate with them. You go back to them and say, this is the idea that I have, how can we collaborate? And if it is led by community leaders, be it in church, our chiefdoms, that project works from experience. So from now on, young people, let's work. Let's talk and more of the work.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's on. It's working.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Let me start by my sister who asked two questions. The first one is on the issue of our group, the interfaith communities in general. Are we part of the problem, or are we, and how can we be part of the solution? Have we been part of the problem for the last centuries? Yes. Yes, no doubt. no doubt. Within each and every one of our faith, groups or religions, and between them. And this continues to this day. And to my mind, this is the relevance of this group. This is the real relevance of this group. And when I spoke about alignment, this group should be the living conscience of the world. The living conscience. Conscience alone cannot lead. That's why the soul alone cannot lead. That's why we should go into this second level, which is bringing the hearts together. That's what I'm talking about, alignments. Aligning the souls. Our religions, our various manifestations, our various, whatever they are, as we say, I've always been saying, how can we together act as the real conscience of this world and pass a common message to move into the level of the heart and into the level of the body, or that of the hand, means action. What action, what plan of action do we have to express our common solidarity? How to build this solidarity, apart from our common consciences, as a conscience of this world, and to move to action. What needs, and I would really wish that at the end of this meeting we'll come out with a common message and a common plan as how we are going to do it, and pass this to the political level. So that the other thing, the issue of communities. Communities have been disrupted. Our traditional ways of conflict resolution in our various African countries have been disrupted because many governments came and replaced them by modern administrations. And this created a vacuum that is still to be filled today. In my own country, Darfur and elsewhere, this is the essence of the problem. Traditional methods of, I am very glad the king is here, which shows me that this is alive in South Africa. Great. And recognized. Yeah. This is not the case in many other countries. So it's a struggle. In Sudan, we have been struggling with this. We are still struggling with this. The basic communities have been disrupted, manipulated by the various regimes, and this continues. The war that we are having in Sudan now is the manifestation of this also. I am one of those who have been trying to build a civic movement from the grassroots up, in order to be able to see to it that the grassroots voice is being listened to. It's not easy. Why? An issue of balance of power. The balance of power. And we have to be very aware of that. Because we have some people carrying guns, and they feel that they are entitled to govern these countries by force, and yet the civil movement, civil space does not exist anymore. Very restricted. So my appeal would be to rebuild the civic movement on healthy and solid foundations, and not to be seen aggressive, because aggressiveness does not bring anyone. We are the best. We are in Sudan since 1964. We had 3 or 4 revolutions, and I happen to be part of 3 of them at least. No, seriously, since the 60s. I am not as young as I look. So now, how do you do things in such a way that you are reorganize yourself in a moving way, and to engage dialogue among yourselves and with those who count, so that you can find the space and you can find the tools of your own action and build solidarity that we have been talking about, and move forward in order to see to it that things are changed. This is true for all. In this way, we are going to avoid the phenomena of revolutions. We are the most revolutionary people in Africa, the Sudanese. We have always done it, but we have not gained anything about it. In Sudan, we have had 34 military coups. 34. And only 3 of them succeeded. And I am living to regret it. Sorry, I have to be long. The other aspect is that of Africa and the world. Yes, of course. There's also a dialogue that needs to take place between us and the world, and see exactly what our rightful place is. We are part of the global south, yes, and we are a part also, some of us part of the BRICS. How can we also engage this dialogue in a meaningful, and how can we also, there again, the balance of power? We cannot stand up to the powerful if we are using their methods. So we have to be creative about that, and so how can we do that? Then the issue of, I think there was a last question there. Sorry, let me just look at my notes. I'm taking too long, I am aware. Yes. Now the issue of peace building, we are talking about peace building. What are the requirements of peace building? Well, my colleague here, UN, have been working on this for so many years. What is required for peace building in any community or society? To my mind, the first thing you require is leadership. You require leadership. If you do not have the right kind of leadership, you are not doing anything. A leadership which is committed, which is enlightened, which is open-minded, which is aware of what needs to be done, and can do the right messaging with the communities, with the people, so as to bring them to understand what is at stake and what needs to be done. The leadership alone cannot do it. So you pass to another level, the level of the people. How do you communicate that to the level of the people? How do you create the conditions for peace building in any countries? And this, of course, to address what we in UNESCO, in the culture of peace of UNESCO, how to address the fault lines in a country. Historically, religiously, ethically, culturally, economically, socially, to identify them very quickly so that you can find the adequate answers for them and how to treat them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, for these questions. And starting off, with the importance of research, a thorough conflict analysis is absolutely essential. And, picking up from what Ambassador said, to understand also power dynamics, stakeholders, spoilers, there are people who benefit. And without that understanding, so for example, where you have certain, places, let's say in the Sahel or Somalia, where you have violent extremist groups that are occupying places. You have areas that they're like proto-state actors. And you have local leaders who are part of that because of the economic, benefit, and doing that. And so, the importance of also being quite inclusive, and this is one of the shortcomings of most of our formal peace processes, is that they are not inclusive. And so it stops, more or less on the cessation of hostilities, but not addressing what are the underlying factors that led us, to this point. And a good example is if you look, in terms of looking at the underlying issues, is in Kenya during the post-election violence in 2008. And you had the formal process, led by Kofi Annan, AU panel, and you also had a parallel group that was sort of, what one would call, track, 1.5, track 2, that was very inclusive. You had people who were seasoned peace builders being part of that, and it was a very open forum where people could come and share. And when you look at the Agenda 4 of the Kenya National Dialogue and Reconciliation Agreements, it addresses all of the issues, be it, youth involvement, new constitution, corruption, land, all of the issues that led to that point, not the trigger factor, which was the election. So, really the importance, of that element. And even if we look at, let's say, the Somalia peace process, the 14th effort that led to the establishment of the transitional, federal government, they involved everybody, also involving the diaspora, involving the private sector, because these people or these individuals or, sectors have a stake. And so the importance of having that holistic view to then come, to a more comprehensive peace that will not, relapse. On the element of what has meaning, it's absolutely essential. even with our terminology, it keeps changing. We were not talking about violent extremism 20 years ago. We were talking about radicalization. We were talking about, different terms. And working in local communities, what we've been doing, for example, working at the local level, is, talking about how does it manifest? What do you call that? What, word, resonates with you? And in terms of leveraging on these local practices, for example, I worked in Tanzania that has a strong culture on dialogue. So we're not talking about conflict prevention. You ask, is there a conflict? People will say no. You ask, were there tensions? Yes, in fact, there was violence, people died, but it's the framing. And so in terms of addressing it, we worked, together with, various stakeholders in terms of, having sort of an approach, to dialogue, but leveraging, on that sort of, local knowledge and local approach. And I just want to share a very quick example of a woman who made a very big difference, who is Daka Ibrahim in 1993, in Wajir, in Kenya, where there was a conflict. And the traditional way was the male elders, and there was a standoff where they did not agree. And she engaged, she was a headmistress at the time, she engaged with other women, she had a consultative processes, within the community, and they came to the elders, to then have some kind of, we cannot continue like this, and had more of a process of getting to an agreement. And then she started the first Peace and Development Committee in Kenya, in Wajir, in 1993. And that became the model of the national peace infrastructure we have today, which we have in a number of countries. As UNDP, we support this. And if you look at a new agenda for peace that promotes having national prevention, action plans, a key element is national ownership. And how do you implement that? They recommend having peace infrastructure. So modeling on this local level, but connecting formal and informal structures from national down to local level. So the importance of having these structures, they can evolve. This is not, a traditional method anymore, but it drew, from that. I just want to acknowledge the point on Ambassador Bethwell Kiplagat and just, to appreciate and to agree on that point. And thank you for sharing that. On peace, I have to say, there's an issue on terminology. We talk about peace building, conflict transformation, sustaining peace, conflict prevention, all of these different elements. But do we really have peace? Do we have peace when we talk about hunger, when we talk about, economic deficits, when we talk about governance deficits? And when we look at, a lot of the issues that we have, going back to the point of also leadership, this comes from governance deficits. So we need to look at peace in a broad way. And this is why I think, a new agenda for peace gives a good frame by looking at it as looking at issues of climate change, looking at economic empowerment, looking at gender parity, looking at youth, involvement. And it highlights all of these elements. So let's not look at it as a before and an after, a conflict prevention and a peace building, but really the sustaining peace agenda was 10 years ago. But let's look at, what are the causes? And too much when we look at how peace has been addressed, it has been siloed. So you have peace, that is one piece, but then when you're looking at some of the elements of the governance deficits, it's not considered as part of an element of sustaining peace in a society, but it is absolutely the bedrock. In terms of mental health, more and more mental health is being recognized within peace building and is being, incorporated. On the point of research, organizations such as UNDP, what we're trying to do is also bridge the gap between policymakers and, also practitioners. And so providing platforms to share the research. So it goes back, to the people, but, really trying to position and also influence what is being done. On funding, billions have not gone into peace building. As I mentioned, when we look at ODA in Africa, it's 4%. What we are seeing is a trend of more military spending, and development is being actually deprioritized, let alone peace building, to go into military spending. And that really is an issue. And this is why, in my remarks, which I mentioned, I think the importance of embedding peace within development planning, within local development plan, within prioritization, because it cannot be something that is apart. When to achieve that, it needs this, very multifaceted, approach. And, the AU was mentioned, the REX, they also need, strengthening, and there are multiple levels, of engagement, and I think also a lot of opportunities at local level, and I think some of the examples I speak to that. So let me stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Professor Tim, let us have your final word on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Martine and Boniface for also animating a very robust, dynamic conversation. Let me pick up on 2 points. I think the first one, what can we do? What should we be doing? And then the second on economic exploitation. I think I completely agree with my sister that religions can be and have been and perhaps still are part of the problem. Wherever you have human systems, as I said before, the ego intervenes, and the ego is driven to aggressively dominate, control, exploit, which I think is why we need to revive the spiritual dimension of our religions. Solomon spoke about the need for us to acknowledge the importance of the human soul. How do we realign our human religions to the human soul, to the spiritual dimension of the human soul? Let's cut beyond all the fluff and the systems. Let us actually try to acknowledge that we are part of one entity. And I think that is a specific to-do. You're asking what should we do? Reclaim the power of your human soul and your spiritual heritage. And then faith in action, I think, translates into your inner work. You have to do some introspection. You have to deal with your trauma. Otherwise, you will not be a peaceful person. Deal with the trauma within your organizations, our organizations. And then we might be able to deal with the trauma that's affecting the planet. That's the step, and that's very concrete. It might sound like, So interfaith actors, I think, here have an important role to play to heal the divides between our institutions. Very quickly on the element of economic exploitation, I'm grateful to our brother who described the human body as a technology, and I would say very much the human being is a technology, the system of technology. When I see many of our scientists scrambling to create AI robots that mimic human beings, I often think somebody has already beat them to it and has created us as human beings. And we tend to forget that. We become the masters of the universe, and then we end up destroying our planet. And this issue of big business exploiting the African continent, I think, is absolutely pertinent. So I thank you for raising that. The corrosive effects of economic exploitation of the African peoples by corporations and big business. South Africa was established by a company, the Dutch East India Company. The country you're sitting in right now was initiated by as a company, and many of those elements haven't gone away. So it's not new. Exploitation goes way back to European slavery, colonial exploitation, today's predatory globalization, and I think on Eldridge's call for bearing witness, our Gen Zs are rising up with a passion and a fury. Nirina mentioned Kenya, and in Kenya our Gen Zs have stood up against the government, but they have been killed in their hundreds. We've lost at least 100 in the last 2 years, protesting the state and the economic exploitation of the global North systems, Bretton Woods institutions. Our brothers in the Alliance of Sahelian States are introducing an interesting experiment. More on that perhaps another time. But this year the African Union has adopted the theme of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. And this is really harking to the issue of the ghosts of the past, slavery, colonialism, exploitation, have not gone away. And they will not go away. So this issue is not new. The Organization of African Unity raised the issue of reparations in 1993 in Abuja Proclamation. 2025, this year, the African Union has adopted it as a theme. Again, 32 years in the making, 32 years from now, we might still be talking about reparations. So in terms of very concrete action, our sisters and brothers in the global north have an important task to play, to take this issue of reparations to their communities. in the global north, the heartland of the homes of the descendants of the enslavers and the colonizers. That's where the debate really needs to happen, as much as it is happening on the African continent. There's a lack of understanding why this issue has come up. It will keep coming up, is the point I'm trying to make. And a very concrete action for interfaith actors, interfaith community to do, and the organizations to pick up as a theme, I'm helping you plan your work plan for 2026, is take on this issue of reparation. Interfaith actors, I think, can contribute to enabling those dialogues to take place between the global north and the global south, descendants of the enslaved and descendants of the enslavers, so that we can become one humanity moving forward. Desmond Tutu, I end with a quote. Desmond Tutu always advised us that we are all wounded and we are wounded healers, and we must work as wounded healers. And then Nelson Mandela, of this great nation of South Africa, always said to us, it always seems impossible until it's done. And now I'm done. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
We're at the end of our session. It's the end of the session, but it's the beginning as well. What I would like to say is that, first of all, when we were organizing the panel, one key point came out is the action. We have a lot of conversations, and we travel to many different conferences and venues, and we talk about the same thing, and we talk, and we talk, and we talk. What we want to push for is what is our next step, what is our next right step, and our action. Would you like to say one last thing?
So we'll keep that in 30 seconds each so that we'll just accommodate 4. Then because we're already above our time, please. So just keep it brief. Then, okay.
But I want to, after you speak, I want to close out as an action step. So stay with us a little bit longer.
Because she has to close, please.
And lunch is next. I'm sure we've all been eating well. So we need
more than 30 seconds, though, please.
No problem. It's understandable.
Thank you so much for getting this opportunity.
Yeah.
My name is Bishop Eldin Khadima. I'm leading the organization called Christ Revealed Interfaith Movement, and I serve also in the kingdom.
Project your voice, please.
The voice, okay. I came with Ngwenyama and the kings. So I heard what it has been said, of which it was well said. But we are, I'm a South African. In South Africa, the State SA has given us the result of unemployment, because everything, according to my understanding as a bishop who works with the people every day, I see the plight of our nation. People are not working. And we see the increase in unemployment in our youth, and even us as parents. Our children are not working, we are not working as well. So that is the cause of the problem. We cannot want or demand peace from the nation if people are hungry. Hunger provokes people, and people become angry. So unemployment is increasing in our nations, not only in South Africa. I would like to say that even our brothers who are crisscrossing the borders is because of unemployment and hunger, and not having the business opportunity, not being involved in the main business project. So for us to have a peace prevail in our countries, people need to be employed. When you are hungry, you cannot be at peace. There is no peace that we can have without being employed. So another thing that I want to say, in South Africa, not long time ago, it was said by our ministers they said that men in South Africa who are unemployed, they chose to become the house husband. And the women, they chose to become housewives. So it is a very, very important, if we can speak about how can we create wealth in our interfaith space across the country or even globally, we will stop a lot of things. Because when you look at this xenophobic thing that is happening in South Africa or in other countries, is because when we see our brothers coming through the borders, we think that they are taking the jobs that we don't have. So we can speak, debate about this up until we create jobs. We make sure that people are getting funding to be in business. We open the doors and making the opportunities for them to be involved in the business, many business streams. We are not going to
Thank
win
you very
the battle.
sincerely. Creating job within the interfaith context is also very, very important. Please let us hear from you very quickly.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Yes. Please, can you help pass the microphone to him? So we'll do this very quickly and wrap up. So please be action and solution minded.
No,
Okay.
thank you.
So that we don't
Sipho
overflow the
Mantula
progress.
from the CRL Rights Commission and from the TM School. I think my intervention will be quick. I had few pointers, but I don't want us to maybe belabor the points. Picking up from Tim, from the same United Nations Charter, let's look at the preamble of the Charter. It is talking about what we are doing here. Look at Article 1 also. That is very clear. But I wanted to move on one thing. When you talk about concepts, ideas, that even in law, Latin terms, servis, ves, parabellum. If you are talking of peace, prepare for war. Very shady one. But you need to understand this one. If you want peace, agree to keep the peace. But also if you want to prepare for peace, talk about peace. The pointers that I wanted to raise, there are few now. What you need from the interfaith is their moral and spiritual authority.
Leadership.
Leadership.
Yes.
You need interfaith leaders to be neutral mediators also. Because in conflicts and in peace building, you need mediators. The second one is how to influence indigenous and endogenous African traditional leaders in conflict management and conflict resolution. Now the youth and the interfaith leadership in the peace process, it is key also. There is no way you can leave it. And that's where, again, when you look at the knowledge and the power of the sermons and the sacred text, it can promote peace from different interfaith. The leveraging of the interfaith media. We don't have a media channel. So you need an interfaith media channel to can promote peace. And the last one, which I don't want to add that other one that was added by my sister Piwin Tlantla when he was talking about government, NGOs on capacity building, is the future outlook. Somebody spoke about AI here, it was Tim. In our continent we say it is artificial intelligence, but it is also AC, ancestral calling. Because artificial intelligence is just the robots, machines. It doesn't feel, but we need to tap into it to say how does it become an early detector of conflict. And the one that I'm raising on future outlook, it is also for us to adapt and go beyond praying and start to train the young people and train the people to be the peace mediators.
Great.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can pray, but we must train the young people.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. So we'll take one more young person. Yeah.
And then just so you know, I'm going to give you an email address at the end where you can share more information and then we can continue to share it out and create action.
Thank you so much, on panelists also. I think what has been a burning statement that I want to make / a question, depending on how we're going to do it, is we're talking so much about peace, but we are not talking also about liberation. You can have peace or you can be peaceful, but you're also not liberated. That is a big thing that we need to make sure that our peace building that we are doing, it leads to liberation. Like religion has played a big role in, if we're talking about how religion has played a big role in Africa, for example, colonization, religion plays a big role. So as religious leaders and people, how do we make sure that first of all, religion is also helping to decolonize? At the same time, the peace building, like we're talking so much that Africa, we are peaceful, we are this, but are we liberated? That's the question. We are still feel like we are bounded, like two people can have arguments and we can have a thing of, oh, let's be mediators and have peace, but are they liberated? Because if we are not really targeting the real roots of the cause, we are not going to feel we can be peaceful today, but is going to be peaceful building every year coming. That is what I wanted to say. We need to think about it. If you're doing peace building activities, it has to lead to liberation. That is all.
That's very striking. Thank you so much. So before Martine wraps up, finally, I want to thank our panelists for the great job and contributions. And please just quickly wrap up.
Can I comment on the last one?
Oh, on liberation.
Let's do it. Let's go. I'd like to comment on liberation.
Okay.
It's a big. Here, let's go ahead and do it.
I'm sorry. Just want to comment on our young brother. We have, when we talk about liberation in Africa, in this part of the 21st century, we have to be very clear what we are talking about. We are not in the 50s, we are not in the 60s, we are not in the 70s.
Everyone has a lot to say.
The challenges have changed. The real liberation today is what our brother, the Reverend, has mentioned. The issue of employment, very important. The issue of empowerment, very important. The issue of education is very important. When I was SRSG in Burundi, the leader of the FNL, the Front for the Liberation of Burundi, which is predominantly Hutu of the majority. I was talking to him with my iPhone. He was somewhere hiding before signing the agreement in Dar es Salaam 3 years later. He said, the Tutsi are doing this to us. The Tutsi are doing this. They are controlling the army. They are controlling education. They are controlling, trade. They are controlling everything. I said, do you know why the Tutsis are doing that? He said, no. I said, because they are more educated than you.
Right.
Take your children to school rather than destroying the schools and universities. And then that day, the answer in French was what? Vous avez raison, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur. He said, you are right, Mr. Ambassador. And since that day, he started working for peace.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
So liberation now should have a different, meaning for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so all for your time. We have to close. If you have a pen, you can take down my email. Share with me what you would like, and we'll make sure to put it into a document for the G20 for the next action step, because we will push for direct action. So the email is MART, it's my first name, INE at ICRD.org. So ICRD.org, and I'll coordinate with the panelists and Father Boniface, and we'll put that documentation together and share it with the G20 Interfaith Forum organizers.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. So the panelists will have a group photo with you briefly before we go there. So thank you.